Sunny ways, my friends, sunny ways.
You sneaky, you're running as an outsider.
I am an outsider.
We have recently switched to drinking water bottles out of water out of when we have water bottles out of plastic. Away from plastic towards paper, like drink box water bottles. So that
well, the frickin' God!
You're ready to fight, aren't you? I can feel
I intend to resign as party leader, as prime minister.
Is this true?
Yes, it's true. This man has no integrity.
Guess what? I got a fever. And the only prescription is more cowbell.
Mr. Prime Minister, will there always be a Canada?
There will always be a Canada.
All right, elbows up.
Elbows up.
It's like people only do things because they get paid. And that's just really sad.
So the answer to that is to stop being stupid.
My great pleasure to introduce my husband, the Prime Minister who will make Canada strong. And Canada
I can't do it. We'll do it live. We'll do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live.
Thank you. It will be an honor to continue to fight for you and to be a champion of your cause as we go forward.
Let's fucking go.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to rumble!
What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the Fringe. I don't know if you guys can see this. Take a look at this parking lot here in Red Deer. This parking lot is jam-packed full. Sorry, I'm not on camera. We're going to be filming live with the APP tonight. We're going to be front row and center. We're going to be broadcasting the entire open house forum that they have tonight. And then tomorrow morning, keep your eyes peeled, I'm going to have an interview with all of the members of Alberta Prosperity Project to ask your questions. Now, you'll have to forgive me, folks. I'm not able to see the chat with the way this works from my phone. Mrs. Fringe is in the chat. She's going to be able to acknowledge everything you guys need. No, this is Red Deer. I see somebody asking if this is Calgary. I did get that comment. No, this is Red Deer. Red Deer, Alberta. We're just headed in here. How you doing? I'm good. How are you? Good. Jeremy? Yeah. Oh, hey, it's nice to meet you.
Good to meet you, man.
Nice to meet you.
Good to see you again.
Good. Just straight through?
Just straight through, go through the rotating doors, and then head to the front.
Straight to the front. Cheers. Thanks so much. All right, here we go, folks. I am indeed. Hi, do you mind that you're on camera?
Yeah, whatever.
Nice to meet you.
Jeremy's here somewhere.
Yeah, I just met him up front.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, are you going to need any help up there? I don't think so.
No, just needed somewhere to set up my tripod, and then we'll get everybody in and ready to go.
Max is up there. You know Max?
I haven't met Max yet, no.
Okay, I should. They got me three. Oh, there's my.
How are you?
Derek from
Unacceptable Fringe. How are you?
I know. And Tiffany, right?
Tiffany's at home. You watch me all the time? I appreciate that. Thanks so much. Hey, how are you? Nice to meet you. Oh, that's good. I'm always going to be around.
Yeah. No, good job.
Good.
Okay.
Where can we go?
Come with me.
Sure.
Lynn, are you going to by the door? That'd be nice. Okay.
All right, here we go, folks.
You're glad you came.
Oh, I'm real glad to be here. I think it's going to be great. I know my viewers have been well invested in this, and they got a lot of questions. So,
you guys, have you met Derek before? Unacceptable Fringe from Spruce and Tiffany Smith.
Yeah, how are you? Good. Oh, that's okay. Nice to meet you.
Are you on live?
I am on live. I had the camera pointed at everywhere. Cheers. All right, let's go, folks. We're in the dome. Soccer center. Oh, sorry, excuse.
I'm on autopilot here. Hey, Shane?
Yes.
You met Derek?
I don't believe we've met yet.
I don't believe so. Derek.
How are you?
Unacceptable.
Nice to meet you. Sorry.
meet you.
Oh, there's, okay, I know.
You betcha.
Welcome. Have you met Derek Smith? Ben Hamsley.
How are you? Good, good. Here, let me shake your hand here.
Oh,
here.
Nice to meet you.
Same here. Sorry.
Unacceptable.
Hands in the way of the camera.
Excellent.
Yeah,
And Tiffany, but
she's at home with the kids.
Yeah.
She's in the chat though. Hey, how are you? Nice to meet you. Good. Hi, nice to meet you. Good. Okay, where are we headed?
Good show. Right. You want to be at the front?
Sure. Yeah, that'd be great if we can get all the coverage there.
Yep.
Oh, hey, we're happy to do it. I got a lot, like I said, a lot of viewers that are real interested to see what's going on. And I'm looking forward to chatting with everybody tomorrow morning as well. So look at this house. It is just filling up. A lot of people. Sure. All right, folks, here we go. Sorry, excuse me.
I supported the unacceptable.
How are you?
I've listened to Mike.
Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you.
Oh, you're from Spruce Grove.
I am indeed.
Okay.
Former Calgary, but
I always get Gary's. These are selective emails, you know. They
Yeah.
go to the head of the, Progressive Conservative Party, federal, and everything else.
Gotcha. Pleasure to meet you.
Yeah, you see.
All right, here we go, folks. Look at this full media access.
What meeting that was?
How you doing? Good, good. How you doing, Doc?
Good. How are you?
Good to meet you finally.
You as well. Derek Smith.
Good, good.
Unacceptable fringe. Yeah, perfect. We're supposed to do something with you.
Absolutely, tomorrow morning. I'm looking forward to it.
At what time?
I believe it's 9:30.
9:30.
I think somewhere around there.
Okay, what happens?
There you go. Good. So looking forward to it.
Very sorry about that.
No, don't be sorry at all. I'm looking forward to it. It'll be great. I do. Yeah. How are you?
And Carrie?
Good. Nice to meet you in person. How are you?
I miss swimming too.
Yeah.
Looking back.
You're with. So your channel's
Freedom Calendar.
okay. I've seen that one before. Yeah. I was told PG the Belt was going to be here as well. Is he streaming as well?
He said he was.
Have we seen him? No, nobody's seen him yet.
Not.
Hopefully he gets here soon.
He should be here.
Where would you like me to set up?
Wherever you want, but I want to do one thing.
Sure.
Excuse me, buddy. Dr. Modry, this is
Hey,
Derek from the
Dr. Modry, how are you?
I'm well, Derek.
Very nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Hi, how are you?
Tiffany is his wife, and she's in Spruce Grove because she's smart watching hockey games.
Yeah, we got to do these things on a night where there's no playoffs. Yeah,
And you can set up here wherever you want, Derek.
just wherever. Okay, perfect. I'll grab a seat and we'll
And
get
you
things
guys
started.
gonna set
So
up an interview tomorrow morning.
yeah, I think APP had the interview set up for they said as many as we could get. I'm not sure, Doc, if you're joining us on that stream or for that. I believe it's 9:30. Yeah, great. Yeah, I appreciate it.
As long as I can pick it.
Yeah, absolutely. I believe it was sent to your main handlers, but I'd like to do. I want to set up 2 streams. So like one where we do our interview tomorrow, and then when you guys are available, I've got a lot of Alberta. 10% of the province watches the channel. They have a lot of questions, so I'd like to maybe even set up like a live stream where we can take viewer questions and get people that are on the fence.
Yeah, and that's a good thing to do. But
Hi there, this is Jim Ferguson of Freedom Train International, and I have a gift.
So
It's all good.
So just resend it to my email.
Yep.
DennisModry@gmail.com.
Will do.
2 N's.
Yep.
No dot between Dennis and Modry.
No problem at all. No problem.
Just so we've got.
We'll get that set up. All right. Cheers. All right.
Set up wherever.
Great. Thanks so much. I'll just pop a seat here and I'll get hooked up. Cheers. Thanks so much. All right, guys. Bear with me here. I'll put you down for just 1 sec. Do you? Oh, thank you so much. Give me 1 second here. I'll get this set up and then I'll formally meet you. How are you? About what? Politics? It seems to be the one thing I talk about all the time.
I'll tell you.
What's that? From the front?
So it's already on live. He said just walk in front of his camera. You'll be
Oh, okay. Give me one sec here. Sorry, folks.
That's okay, no worries. I know your job.
We're gonna get everybody set up here. We're already live. All right, hang in there, folks.
There's fires in the sky, there's ashes on the ground.
Over there.
It's feeling like a war zone now. There's bombs flying by.
All right, you guys should be set up here. Give me 1 second here, folks. I'm just gonna let the live stream run, and then I'll be back momentarily as soon as the show starts, folks. Couple minutes. How are you? Well, how are you? Yep. Pardon? Yep. Okay, yeah, no worries. I'll be right over here. Yeah, here. Thanks so much.
So you can talk right back here.
Gypsy. Yeah, nice meeting. Yeah. What's
I need you to have to have Gypsy.
Hey, how are you?
Just how many things?
Yeah.
If nothing can touch that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's just we need to have it. Okay, are you guys okay?
We're going to start the presentation right at the end of this song. Please find a seat
Let's
and listen to Paul Grant.
is there? Okay. All right, folks, here we go.
Tore across Montana, Ian Tyson sang a lonesome lullaby. And so
I wanted to come and say hi.
How are you?
I'm Sandy.
Nice to meet
And
you.
my husband and I watch you every freaking morning.
Oh, well, I'm so sorry.
We love you.
Absolutely. No, I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
And if you're still around after, how much
We have an echo.
Sorry, folks, copyright music. We had to mute the audio.
My
there.
name is Nicole Kimpton, and I'm going to be your MC for the evening. I have a couple of housekeeping announcements for you. We have the bathrooms through the roundabout door out there. There's only one set of washrooms for us, so that's where you'll go. Emergency exits are located all around the building. I feel like I'm a little bit of a flight attendant from my previous days. Thank you all for coming out to our Alberta Prosperity Project meeting tonight. This wouldn't happen without all of you, so we definitely want to thank you and give you all a big round of applause for coming out this evening. We have an amazing event for you this evening with 3 fantastic speakers. I'm not sure if all of you have heard them before. We have Dr. Dennis Modry. We have Jeff Rath. And we have Mr. Mitch Sylvester. We also have a couple of surprises for you, and I just wanted to also mention at the back that there are merchandise and membership tables back there. Our volunteers are working hard to support you guys and keep you guys occupied, so please do go support them, even if it's to say hello. But the merchandise and the memberships are at the back, so go say hi at the end or when you're mingling around and check them out. And I wanted to say a huge thank you to our volunteers, because without volunteers, none of this would be possible. So if we could give them a huge round of applause. I'd also like to take an opportunity to thank 3 of our sponsors for this evening. We have Downtown's Oilfield Services. We have Kahoot. I apologize. I don't have their thing here. I apologize. Kahoot was also a big founder, and then the Dome. Without this venue, this wouldn't be possible. So I wanted to give a huge round of applause for them for helping us out this evening as well. APP likes to start our events with an opening blessing and an opening prayer. So I'm going to invite Pastor Matt to come up and say our opening prayer.
All right. Gentlemen, I invite you to remove your hats. And let's start with the word of prayer this evening. Heavenly Father, Almighty God, maker of heaven and earth, the 3-in-1 eternal God, you sit enthroned in the heavens and laugh at the raging of the nations who try to break your bonds. We bow before you, for yours is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. You alone are God, and there is none beside you. You are the living and active God who has made and sustains all things. We acknowledge that unless you build the house, those who build it labor in vain. Unless you watch over the city, the watchman stays awake in vain. We do not desire what is being done here to be in vain, and so we ask for your wisdom and your hand to lead us and guide us according to your plan and purpose. We confess our utter dependence upon you, on your wisdom, your word, and your will. If you are not in this, Lord, it will fail. No constitution, no sovereignty, no referendum has weight apart from your eternal decree. It is you who raises up kings, and it is you who brings them low. It is you who grants liberty, and you alone who secures it. And Father, we thank you for this gathering, for these men and women who long for justice, who labor for freedom, who strive for prosperity, not just for themselves, but for generations yet unborn. We ask that this would not be a gathering of pride nor rebellion, but one of righteousness. Make our cause one that honors what you have established. May we not tear down what you have put in place, but rather use us to rebuild what lawlessness and corruption have eroded. We plead with you, Lord, grant wisdom to our leaders that they would kiss the Son lest he be angry and they perish in the way. May every deliberation here today be shaped by submission to our Lord Jesus Christ, the only wise King, the lawgiver and the judge. And Lord, this evening I pray for Alberta and indeed all of Canada, that we would remember our founding confession that Christ shall have dominion from sea to sea. We not only ask this, but we expect it. The earth is yours and everything in it, and all authority has been given and will be held to account in Christ. Restore to us leaders who do not fear the polls of men, but fear you, Lord. Replace cowardice and conviction and compromise with courage. And Father, we do not pray naively. We know that there are those who oppose righteousness, who suppress the truth, who call evil good and good evil. Rise up, O God, and scatter your enemies. Cause their plans to fail. Break their teeth in their mouths. May those who love violence and hate peace find themselves confounded. May the wicked be caught in their own nets, and may the truth prevail over deception. But let your people rejoice. Let the righteous be glad. Let those who seek your face take courage, that we may be found among them. Bless this gathering, O Lord, with clarity of thought, unity of purpose, and a vision that honors your name. Lord, I ask this humbly, not because we deserve it, but to bring you glory. In the name of Jesus Christ, the King of Kings and Lord of Lords, we pray. Amen.
This evening, we also have a special guest that's going to come up here and do a little something for us. So without further ado, I'm going to invite Kate Graham from I Am Albertan to come up on stage.
Thank you, Nicole. So I'm going to say a little different kind of prayer for Alberta. Oh Lord, won't you bring me independence? Ottawa is killing me. I must make amends. Worked hard all my lifetime, no help from those friends. Oh Lord, won't you bring us independence? Oh Lord, won't you get us a way to be free from Ottawa, from the Liberals, from the NDP? I wait for delivery each day until 3. Oh Lord, won't you get us a way to be free? Oh Lord, won't you give us just one night without no clowns? No Nenshi, no conduct, no Carney to bring me down. Prove that you love me and let's get them out of town. Oh Lord, won't you give me just one night without no plans? Everybody, oh Lord, won't you bring me independence? Ottawa is killing us, we must make amends. Worked hard all our lifetime, no help from those friends. Oh Lord, won't you bring me independence? Thank you.
How is that? How about another round of applause? I'd like to ask, how many of you are new this evening to an APP event? Whoa, that is incredible. Amazing. You guys deserve a round of applause for yourselves too. That's probably over half of you. Incredible. That's incredible. So you guys, this will be new for you then, for a lot of you to see what Alberta Prosperity Project is about. And so just to give you a little update, we are an educational society that brings information so that you have the facts and you have a whole view of what's going on. And that's what our speakers are here to bring to you this evening. So our first speaker tonight is Dr. Dennis Modry. And Dr. Dennis Modry is a cardiothoracic surgeon He has been in practice, or he was in practice for 32 years, and he is a founder of APP, and he is an incredible gentleman that he can just talk your ear off with a lot of information and education about sovereignty and independence. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Dr. Dennis Smodry.
Thanks, Nicole. Can everybody hear me okay? Or am I echoing? Echoing, maybe? All right. Well, I too want to individually, personally, rather, thank you all for coming. I'm hearing an echo. Is it sounding okay? Just go with it. Okay, in the back, it's sounding okay? All right. Okay. So I'm going to start off a little bit the way I've started off before, especially for the people that haven't been to an event or heard me speak. I'm going to start off talking about vegetables very briefly. So many of you might know or don't know that George Bush Sr., the former president of the United States, famously stated that he hated broccoli. And he says when he was a kid, his mother used to make him eat broccoli. But now that he's the president and he still hates broccoli, nobody can force him to eat broccoli, which brings me to what was a recent poll conducted. And the question posed was, what's the most hated vegetable in Canada? And it turned out to be Trudeau. Which brings me to another very short story of the very distraught woman who's sitting at the confessional, and she says to the priest, "Father, please forgive me, for I have sinned horribly." And the priest says, "My dear, what was it that you did?" And she said, "Well, last night I killed a politician." And the priest responded by saying, "My dear, I'm here to listen to your sins, not your community service." All right, so I got everybody's attention. Let's talk about sovereignty now. Let's look at the last election. Something interesting that you probably observed but never really thought about too much, and that is when you look at the electoral map after the election, Saskatchewan, Alberta, Central BC, and Northern BC didn't vote the way the rest of Canada voted. And what does that tell you? It tells you that this is repetitive, for one thing, because this is the way it happens every federal election. But it tells you something else more profound. And that's simply this. The values and the culture in the other regions aren't the same as they are out here in the prairies. They're very different. And this becomes even more relevant to understand when you consider what Mr. Carney stands for. And you need to listen to or understand and internalize what it is he actually says, which is very clear in his book entitled Values, published in 2021. So what did he say? He said, Western civilization is morally rotten, corrupted by capitalism, which has caused a climate emergency. He said that, all right? Now, his solution, though, is the rigid controls of individual freedom and business. And when he says business, is business aligned with the development and transport of our natural resources as well as agriculture, but also the rigid controls of banking and other financial institutions that help finance agriculture and the development and transport of our natural resources. And then he admits that assets will be stranded, that businesses will go bankrupt, that you won't be able to sell your internal combustion engine vehicle. And how is he going to accomplish this? Well, he talks about this as well. And I'm sure you've heard of it. How about starting off with censorship? He's okay with people hearing just one narrative. So he's going to continue to control what the Trudeau government already implemented, which is censorship of media and content. And he's also going to help control what you think can do and where you go through a digital ID and a central bank digital currency. If he says it, believe it. If he says he's going to do it, believe it. And he was in a position with the World Economic Forum to do some of these very things. So how do we solve this problem? I mean, I think everybody here knows something's wrong, but how do we fix it? Well, when you evaluate what's happened over the last 120 years, and you look at federal regulations and taxation, and you look at the Constitution, you come away with the clear understanding that it's simply not possible to open and change the Constitution to satisfy what Albertans and freedom-loving individuals want to happen. For those of us who really believe in self-determination and being masters of our own destiny, it's very difficult, and it will become more difficult in the current situation. So if it's not possible pragmatically to open and change the Constitution, what can we do? Well, fortunately, there is a solution, and that solution is for Alberta to become an independent, sovereign country. And let me just touch on sovereignty for a second. What I don't want people to think is that sovereignty for Alberta is a left or right issue. It isn't. It's an issue that is pragmatic for everybody in terms of their culture, your own culture, planning your economic future, looking after your families. These are very pragmatic things that touch everybody on whatever political spectrum you feel as though you are on. Everybody benefits as a result of Alberta becoming a sovereign nation. Now, simply speaking, sovereignty is really self-governance, free from external control. But pragmatically, again, it's freedom from persecution. What kind of persecution? Economic persecution, political persecution, cultural persecution, and religious persecution. This is what sovereignty is. There's nothing higher than being sovereign. And God is sovereign, there's nothing higher than that. But as an individual, you are sovereign as an individual unless you give up control through regulations, particularly by the federal government. You give up some of your individual sovereignty. Similarly, you give up some of your individual sovereignty when you are giving your money through taxes, and those taxes are wasted, and they're not providing any benefit for you. Does anybody think, just by a show of hands, do you think there's fraud, waste, and abuse in government? Well, there you go. So if you know it's true, and if you know it's true, remember that when you are overtaxed, overregulated, and overgoverned, you're giving up some of your sovereignty. All right, so how did we get into this mess? It's worthwhile touching on it because I think it's germane, and it helps you understand a little bit of the history as to why we are where we are at now. So let's go back to September 1, 1905. That's when Alberta and Saskatchewan were incorporated into Canada, thanks to the efforts of Sir Clifford Sifton. He was the Minister of the Interior in the Liberal government of Sir Wilfrid Laurier. And he was responsible for bringing Alberta and Saskatchewan into Confederation. But it's what he said in 1904 to an audience in Winnipeg that's so important that you understand these words. Because when you understand what he said in 1904 to that audience in Winnipeg, you will understand why we are in this mess that we are in now. So I quote, he said, "We desire, and all Canadian patriots desire." Now, Canadian patriots are the people living in the East in 1904. So we desire, and all Canadian patriots desire, that the great trade of the prairies, now that's Alberta and Saskatchewan's wealth, that the great trade of the prairies shall go to enrich our people in the East, to build up our factories and our places of work, and in every legitimate way contribute to its prosperity. Not the prosperity of Alberta and Saskatchewan or the West in general, but the East. We started as a colony. We continue to be a colony, pillaged and plundered for the benefit of the East. In addition, we're forced to accept or at least contemplate cultural issues that don't align with our values. And they're being shoved down our throats. Now, how has this all been manifest economically? Well, since equalization, the national energy policy, and other confiscatory tax policies, for which we've not received a cent in return. Now, I want to touch on the national energy policy for a second, because you'll see how it links back to what Clifford Sipton said in 1904. So the national energy policy was passed in 1980. Thanks to Mark Lalonde, who was the brainchild behind it. He was the Minister of Finance in Pierre Elliott Trudeau's government. But prior to 1980, Alberta was booming. There was a massive demographic shift of people and businesses coming to Alberta. And why? Liquid gold, oil. All 5 major banks were planning on moving their head offices to Calgary. One did, CIBC. But what happened in Alberta? People lost their homes. People lost their businesses. Businesses moved out of the province. People committed suicide. It was a mess for the next 15 years. Did Ottawa care? And what was the real reason for implementing the national energy policy? Ostensibly, it was sold to us gullible Canadians to provide additional resources to poorer regions in the country so they would have similar social services. That was the reason stated. But when you listen to Mark Lalonde and his reason, he said, we could not let Alberta become the center of economic power in Canada. That's what he said. But something else was going on that was quite nefarious at that time. And that was something else happened in 1980. That was the first Quebec secession referendum. The federal government was nervous about Quebec leaving. So what did they say? Look, we're going to implement a national energy policy and we'll get more money from Alberta to give to Quebec. And I want you to understand, folks, nothing much has changed, even though the national energy policy is over. 2 of every $3 of equalization goes to Quebec. 2 of every $3 to keep them in Canada, primarily with Alberta as well. We give about 14 billion, they get about 14 billion of the entire equalization amount. All right, what about current times? What's happened in the last 8 to 10 years? Well, we still have anti-energy policy, anti-agricultural policy, anti-resource development policy, and $500 billion, $500 billion of planned investment into Alberta did not occur. Did not occur. Why? Federal regulation and taxation. There wasn't a business case. But guess what? That investment occurred elsewhere in the world, in the US, Qatar, elsewhere. That $500 billion would have generated trillions of dollars of increased economic activity in the province of Alberta. Notwithstanding the fact that we can't get our oil and gas to Tidewater, to other international markets, costs us $26.5 billion every year, according to a research report from the Frontier Center for Public Policy, just released a few weeks ago. And how has this all been manifest economically for Alberta? If you look at all industrialized countries in the world, economic growth in Canada is dead last. Dead last. Why? Federal regulation and taxation. That's why. So let's look at something else. Property rights. Did you know that you do not have the right to own property in Canada? David Lametti, the Minister of Justice, made that point a couple of years ago, and he's right. You don't have the right to own property. If you think you own property and you don't have a mortgage, just don't pay your taxes and you'll find out who owns your property. So what can we do about this? Let's look at what our provincial government is doing. Our provincial government, the Premier, and I have to say the Premier has done a really good job in a number of different areas. And I'm going to touch on some areas that I think haven't worked so well. But you might remember Bill 1. Bill 1 was the first piece of legislation that the provincial government under the UCP implemented. Alberta Sovereignty within the United Canada Act. What was the purpose of that? The purpose of that was to deal with federal overreach of provincial constitutional jurisdiction. That was the purpose. Does it have any teeth? Not much. If you think about it, why is it that the provincial government has launched some 18 lawsuits against the federal government? So it would imply there's not much teeth to Bill 1. And then who's going to decide many of these lawsuits? And they're related to development and transport of natural resources, censorship, agriculture, etc. It'll be the Supreme Court in most instances. And think about this, the Supreme Court, 9 justices, 3 from Quebec, appointed from the Prime Minister's office, 3 from Quebec, 3 from Ontario, 1 from the Maritimes, and 2 from all of Western Canada. So how do you, oh, and by the way, you have to be bilingual, French, English at least. Maybe French, German would work too, given this federal government. It doesn't matter. It could be French and Swahili or something, but you got to be bilingual. So you can imagine how most of these lawsuits are going to be settled. And do we have time to spend years or decades fighting with the federal government? I don't think so. I don't think so. You can just imagine how much harm can occur to us in a short period of time under Mr. Carney's government. So let's look at the Premier's rhetoric and actions. Brilliant rhetoric, there's no question about it. More than any other Premier in Canada, she has stated publicly in a very convincing way that she's standing up for Alberta. But does her rhetoric match her actions? Let's look at that from a second, just for a second. There are some things that she could do unilaterally that doesn't require a referendum, it doesn't require a legal fight or anything like that. She can unilaterally make the decision to take control of provincial policing, pensions, immigration, employment insurance, and provincial tax collection. After all, Quebec takes control of tax collection, policing, and it controls immigration. Ontario has an Ontario police force. Why hasn't she done this? This would have given us a semblance of control, not sovereignty, but more control. So let's look at sovereignty from the perspective of opening and changing the Constitution, because this is fundamental if you wanted to ever have the concept of remaining in Canada, but with control of your wealth and affairs. And let's take the example of equalization. Most of you will remember in 2021, we had a vote, right, to end equalization. 62% of Albertans voted to end equalization. Why didn't it happen? It didn't happen because it couldn't happen. That was a virtue signaling referendum by Premier Jason Kenney to satisfy the complaints that occurred at the Fair Deal panel. And he said, well, we'll have a referendum on ending equalization. That should satisfy the people that are concerned about Alberta's relationship with Canada. So the reason it couldn't happen, and Jason Kenney knew that, is because here are the hurdles to open and change the Constitution, just to change one thing, ending equalization. You need 7 of 10 provincial legislatures representing 50% of the population voting in favor. 2, you have to have the House of Commons in a majority voting in favor to end equalization. 3, you have to have a majority in the Senate voting in favor of ending equalization. Quebec has a veto. And if there's a constitutional battle, it'll be handled by the Supreme Court. Now, raise your hand if you think it's possible to open and change the Constitution. Don't be shy. We can debate it. All right, so nobody thinks it's possible to open and change the Constitution. Well, fortunately, there is a solution to actually achieve that conceptually. And I'm not going to get into the details of the Citizens Initiative Act and the Clarity Act, but the Clarity Act is the legal pathway for a province to leave Canada. And the Citizens Initiative Act in Alberta here is what gives us the authority, the voting public, the authority to force a referendum on Alberta sovereignty. And as some of you will probably know, at present, right now, still, in order to have a petition to force a referendum, you need a petition signed by 600,000 people collected within 90 days. That's impossible. Unless you've got $50 or $100 million to throw at it, you can buy the votes. So we developed a workaround, and we said, well, let's collect the contact information of 600,000 people. And then when we got the contact information, then our petition question will go to Elections Alberta for certification. We'll send out the petitioner, the canvassers with the petition forms, and we can collect the 600,000 signatures. Why? Because now we know where to go. We know where those 600,000 people are. Kind of a brilliant idea, don't you think? So where are we now? Well, some of you will know that there has been Bill 54 is pending being proclaimed into law. And that should occur sometime within the next few weeks. That would lower the threshold from 600,000 people to 177,000 people, right? And here it is. Wait for it, wait for it, wait for it. We already have 250,000 or more individuals who have registered their intent to support, to sign the petition to support a referendum on sovereignty. All right, now there is something important that I need to say. So let's assume that we have the successful referendum. What happens then? Well, that then requires, according to the Clarity Act, that the federal government and the other provinces negotiate in good faith with Alberta. But what it doesn't say is what will happen if those negotiations fail. So fortunately, international law exists as well, which simply says, if you have a successful referendum in a region that wants to become a sovereign nation, then that is political legitimacy. May not follow the Clarity Act exactly, but it's political legitimacy, and that is informed further when other countries acknowledge that Alberta has had a successful referendum on sovereignty, and I can assure you the US will be the first government that acknowledges Alberta's sovereignty. And the precedent for it, and this is important to understand as well, because you might say, well, gee, that sounds like maybe pie in the sky. No, precedent has been set. In 2008, February 2008, Kosovo declared its independence unilaterally from Serbia as a result of having a successful referendum. And within 1 month, there were the first two countries to acknowledge Kosovo's newfound sovereignty was, number one was Japan. Can anybody guess what number two was? Canada, right. So it'd be rather hypocritical for Canada not to acknowledge Alberta's sovereignty based on a successful referendum on sovereignty. So I'm going to close now with a question. And I want you all to be Ralph Klein tonight, okay, our former premier. Because in 2003, I posed a question to him at the annual general meeting. We were pretty good friends, very good friends, in fact. So I'm talking to him privately, and I said, Ralph, I think I've got a solution. I think I've got a solution to fix the dysfunctional relationship between Alberta and Ottawa and yourself and Mr. Chrétien. He says, you do? And I said, yeah. Would you like to hear about it? He said, absolutely. Would you like to hear about it? All right. Remember, you're Ralph. You forgot already, right? All right. So I said, okay, so it's based on this question. I said, Ralph, if you were the president or the prime minister of the sovereign country of Alberta, and Canada came to you and said, we would like Alberta to join Confederation under the current terms and cost of membership, would you? Would you? All right. His response was a little different, but I'll always remember it. He said, to ask the question is to know the answer. Of course not. And I said, well, I'm really glad that you said that because I have a corollary. I have another question for you. Are you ready for it? Okay. I said to Ralph, don't you think you have a moral, ethical, and an economic responsibility to fix this dysfunctional relationship? Do you think you have a responsibility to help fix this dysfunctional relationship? You do, because we can't do it alone, folks. This will take all of us working together to get to a point where we can have a referendum, and we got 2.9 million people are going to be eligible voters in 2026. So we're going to need 1.7 million of you to vote in favor of Alberta sovereignty if you really want to get out from under federal regulation, governance, and taxation. And finally, I'm going to leave you with one other thought. The difficulty of speaking to friends, family, colleagues, and strangers, all right? You have to ask them one question. Well, maybe two. Are you happy with the current situation? And if you're not happy with the current situation, are you more emotionally attached to the Canadian government and the Canadian system, or are you more emotionally attached to your family and future generations? Are you more willing to do something that will benefit your family, or do you want to stay in this relationship with Canada? If you're perfectly satisfied with that, remember this is a democracy. But if you want to change people's hearts and minds, you've got to touch them in a way in which you don't force it on them, but you point out opportunities for them to improve their lot in life and their families, to give them back the sovereignty they so well deserve. Thank you so much for your attention.
Let's give another round of applause for Ms. Dr. Dennis Modry. Our next speaker this evening is a gentleman that has come from Calgary, Alberta to visit with you all tonight. He is a lawyer from Calgary, constitutional lawyer, and he has the biggest heart that I have ever seen. Jeff Rath is a gentleman that will fight for our constitutional rights, and he is a founder on the board of the Alberta Prosperity Project. So I'd like to introduce Jeff Rath.
Wow, what a turnout tonight. It's always such a pleasure to see all of my fellow Albertans coming out to an event like this for the sake of our kids and our grandkids and the future of our province. Because everybody needs to internalize the fact that Mark Carney and the current Liberal government are nothing less than an existential threat to our continued existence within the province of Alberta. And I'm not just saying that, lightly. I think a lot of us have heard a lot about a lot of the foolishness that's come out of Quebec lately going, oh, well, Alberta, it has no culture. It can't be independent. Well, we have news for Quebec. We do have a culture. Our culture is of hardworking, independent, and free people who want to be able to get up in the morning, work to take care of our families, work to take care of our kids, and have the government stay the hell out of our lives. And of course, that's the one thing that the Liberals cannot stand, right? 340,000 licensed gun owners in the province of Alberta. Justin Trudeau wakes up one night, whether it's a wet dream or a nightmare, we're not sure what. He just decides, oh my goodness, Albertans can't have guns anymore. I'm going to take them all away. And next thing you know, stupid lists are being posted telling us what property we're no longer allowed to own. And this is just by fiat out of Ottawa, not legislation, just order in council, stroke of a pen, things that you thought you owned, you no longer owned because somebody in Ottawa said so. This is the arrangement and relationship that we as Albertans want to get out of. Dr. Beaudry was talking about some of the inequities within Canadian Confederation. Something I'd like people to think of beyond the fact that we basically only ever have 1 or less seats on the Supreme Court to Ontario and Quebec's 6, is the fact that every time a case goes up to the Supreme Court on division of powers and Alberta's on the other side of it, surprise, surprise, the Supreme Court rules against Alberta. One of the most recent examples of this was that foolish climate change reference that went up to the Supreme Court. It didn't go up on the basis of science or a big trial on whether or not any CO2 generated in Alberta appreciably changes the temperature of the planet by even a decimal point. There was no scientific exposition of this in a trial court. The case went up to the Supreme Court as a division of powers reference. The province said, hey, Canada, you can't interfere with our resources. Canada's response was, oh no, but we've declared a climate emergency. And because we have a climate emergency, this is an existential threat to the world, and it's an existential threat to Canada. So therefore, the Supreme Court, please throw out the constitutional law of Canada and allow us to tell Albertans how much oil they're allowed to produce and how many emissions they're allowed to have come out of the Alberta oil patch or the Alberta economy, period, on the basis of us just jumping up and down and going, it's an emergency, the sky is falling. This is the world that Alberta is trying to get out of, is this foolish governance by dictate from Ottawa that makes absolutely no sense on a from a scientific perspective. I just keep waiting for the slogan, because when the feds come in and start campaigning against Alberta sovereignty and Alberta independence, I'm just waiting for the slogan, Canada, safe and effective. I mean, this is the world we live in, right? And when Dennis is talking about the inequities of the Supreme Court, he didn't even touch on the Senate. We have Newfoundland, 6 Senate seats. Prince Edward Island, 4 Senate seats. Nova Scotia, 10 Senate seats. New Brunswick, 10 Senate seats. That's 30 Senate seats for the Maritimes, whose combined population is less than half of Alberta's, and we have 6 Senate seats to their 30. This is the country that they have us living in. We basically exist as oppressed, colonized people with $70 billion a year taken out of this province for the benefit of Quebec, Ontario, and the rest of Canada, with less than $20 billion of it coming back to us in direct transfers. So that's one of my favorite things lately, is whenever the Federalists come up and start telling lies about what's going on and talking about how impossible Alberta independence is going to be. My all-time favorite is to go, oh, if you separate, there'll be no more health transfers. Right? And of course, what's so funny about that is it's our goddamn money. Excuse my language. It's our money. Right? So it's like, no, Canada, you got this backward, right? When Canada declares independence, you will not be receiving one more nickel of tax revenue from Alberta. And something I wanted to talk about tonight was that, and we've been working, I haven't been on the road with our road warriors, Dennis and Mitch, for the last couple of weeks, who've been doing just absolutely phenomenal service to us and the movement. I've lost track now of how many events they've both done. I think about 35 in the last 3 weeks. I'm just completely shocked at the stamina these gentlemen have. But anyway, well, they've been busy doing that. I've been working at home with other APP volunteers and CEOs of financial institutions and people with more letters after their names than they have in them, working on a fully costed business plan for an independent Alberta. And I have to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, the numbers are staggering. On the first run through, I asked the economist that was doing the first run through on the numbers, and I said, come on, tell me, how do the numbers look? He goes, Jeff, we're going to be like Monaco. and quite seriously, I mean, what we're looking at, and this is after taking into account all of the federal services that we're going to replace. So $1.5 billion startup cost, for a training cadre and Alberta Armed Forces, 3% of GDP thereafter for an Alberta Armed Forces. I'll talk in more detail about our sovereign Indigenous people in a minute, but tripling the amount of funding to Indigenous people in Alberta to finally alleviate Indigenous poverty in this province. Through constitutionalized resource revenue sharing and other mechanisms that I know, I met with the chief and council today, that First Nations in Alberta are going to love. So that's fully costed in. NAVCAN services, so, air traffic control services, all those kinds of things. Obviously, we don't need a Coast Guard. We don't need a Navy. Although I did tell Mitch recently that I want to rename Cold Lake the Gulf of Alberta. But anyway, so everything fully costed in, external affairs, the whole 9 yards, and the fiscal capacity surplus that we're left with is between $30 and $50 billion a year that will stay in Alberta and will stay in all of your pockets in the form of tax relief and getting completely rid of federal income tax and cutting everybody's tax bills by more than half. That's just year one. Year one. And of course, what we're looking at with the increased leverage that the independent Commonwealth of Alberta will have to negotiate pipelines with the rest of Canada, to build new pipelines into the States, including a pipeline to Tidewater through Montana, Idaho, and Washington, that within 5 years, we could more than double the production of natural resources in this province, greatly expand the provincial economy, because we're going to completely get rid of all carbon taxes on petroleum in this province and gas. We can hook the Montney gas field, which is a 400 trillion cubic foot field, which is now one of the largest in the world. We can hook that gas field up into some of the largest cogeneration plants in the world. We have the technology to do this. We've been building them for years. We can hook all of those plants up to the largest AI and data hub in the world and become leaders in AI technology and data technology, all fueled by clean Alberta natural gas. That's all part of our future. And just using really, really conservative projections as to where the Alberta economy could be in 5 years. Year one, we're already being able to cut taxes by half. By year 5, it will be possible to double the pensions of every Alberta pensioner and completely eliminate income tax in the province of Alberta. These are the numbers. And I mean, this, I'm a political scientist and a lawyer. I mean, I struggled with basic statistics. I mean, a lot of us go into law because we can't do math. But thankfully, I've got bankers, accountants, economists, and all the rest of it running the numbers for us. And the numbers look phenomenal. And this is going to be released in the next, within the next week. And, I think to the chagrin of Canada in advance of the G7 conference, held in our backyard in Kananaskis, Alberta. Now, the other thing I wanted to touch on, because again, I want to get back to this idea of Canada being an existential threat to Albertans. I read this last week that the Liberals are resuscitating their universal basic income plan. So if you think about what I was saying earlier about Alberta culture and, basically, our desire to teach our children the value of hard work and industry and being able to take care of their own families and be proud, independent people, the Liberals are again floating a plan called Universal Basic Income. This plan entails giving every single person in Canada, starting at the age of 17, so listen to this, 17, every 17-year-old will be given $2,000 a month, whether they're in school, whether they have a job, whether they have a plan to go to school, whether they have a plan to get a job. Everybody's going to be given $2,000 a month, well, the dwindling number of us who still work for a living and pay real taxes, as opposed to the government sector, which effectively gets paid by the government to give money back to the government and don't really produce anything of value within our society other than bureaucracy and more rules and regulations. But we're going to have a dwindling population of people that actually contribute to the GDP of this province, where we have this ever-expanding base of completely useless people that do not feel that they ever have to work because they're going to be taught from the age of 17 years onward that the government will just take care of them like they're babies for the rest of their lives, and they don't need to get off their ass and find a job because the Liberal government's going to give them $2,000 a month, right? Without any thought as to how any of this is going to be paid for. And then let me tell you about their other plan as to how they're going to pay for all of this foolishness. Everybody that owns a home. Dr. Baudry was talking about that earlier. Well, try not paying your property taxes and find out whether you still really own your home. Well, the Liberals now are floating an idea, because keep in mind, there's almost $5 trillion of value locked up in the home equity of every Canadian homeowner. So the Liberals are now talking about bringing in an equity tax on home equity, so that every year all of us are going to be forced to have an appraisal done on our property, so that the Liberal government then can assess a tax on our home equity and literally steal money out of your home equity account so that they can pay for all of these foolish World Economic Forum generated programs that make absolutely no sense whatsoever, except for the destruction of Canada and the Canadian economy. So all of the billionaires that are members of the World Economic Forum Club can come in and scoop up all of Canada and Alberta's resources at pennies on the dollar. That's their plan for Alberta. So independence is not only something that we all should desire, should think is for the benefit of our children and our grandchildren and our families, but becoming independent from Canada is now a matter of urgency. Canada is literally planning the destruction of our culture, the destruction of our economy, the robbery of all of our savings and home equity, all under the guise of the World Economic Forum slogan that we're all going to own nothing and be happy. So again, I want to thank everybody tonight for coming out. I want to thank everybody for listening to our message this evening. It's very important that we all continue to band together. Dr. Baudry has already indicated that we've got over 250,000 people that have registered to sign our petition. I would urge everybody that's here tonight that hasn't gone to the APP website, it's just albertaprosperityproject.com, to please, if you haven't registered yet, please register. Please make sure that all of your family and friends have registered, so that we know where to find people when it comes time to gathering signatures to have, to give effect to the referendum petition leading to sovereignty referendum within the next 12 months. And I urge all of you, to talk to your neighbors and friends. Once the costed business plan is out, it'll be available online at app.com. Please read it. Please share it with your friends. Please share the message that Alberta independence is the only hope that your children and grandchildren have for a safe, sane, and prosperous future. And when we're doing these types of things and talking to people, I really want people to internalize that idea. I was talking to a group of businessmen in downtown Calgary a few weeks ago, and at the end of it, one of the gentlemen, and this is a fairly high net worth group of individuals I was talking to. I was probably talking to about $4 billion worth of fund managers and other people that were interested in what we're doing within our movement. And one of these senior businessmen came up to me at the end of it. And he said, Jeff, I just really want to thank you for everything that all of you at APP are doing. He said, my kids and my grandkids, they've all left Alberta because they see that there's no hope here for them. There's no future for them in this province because of the fact that the federal government is literally has already planned the destruction of the province of Alberta. But he said, there's hope. And he said, I'm hoping that I can get my kids and my grandkids to come back to Alberta because for the first time in the longest time, I think we can have hope for a prosperous future for our kids and our families. So that's what this is about. And I want everybody to please internalize that, share that with everybody that you know, and continue working forward with us so that 12 months from now, we can have Alberta declared, as an independent country and move forward to negotiate the end of our, of our subjugation by Canada on a nation-to-nation basis. So thank you all very much for listening tonight.
Let's give Jeff Rath another round of applause. How many of you are enjoying what you're hearing this evening? How many of you want Alberta to be independent? One of the things at Alberta Prosperity Project we do, we're grassroots. We are all volunteers. We are not here for money. We are here for the betterment of Alberta. So one of the things that we do at all of our meetings is we do ask for donations. And we ask because we don't have funding from anybody. When we talk to donors, we talk to founders for donations. It's to better Alberta and to actually accomplish this. We have 250,000 signatures right now. We want to get to 1.2 million. I need every single one of you to help me get there. At 250,000 right now, it literally would take us all to get 4 people. Do you think we could do that? Can I get your help doing that? We are going to pass the buckets, just so you know, they're coming through the aisles. But before I bring up Mitch Sylvester here, I'm going to introduce him. Mitch Sylvester has owned and operated a sports store in Bonnyville, Alberta since 1989. He was the head of the Alberta Pension Plan and still is the head of the Alberta Pension Plan and the CEO of Alberta Prosperity Project. Mitch goes day to day going for the people. He is honest, he is integral, and he is here to serve. I would like to introduce Mitch Sylvester.
I have a favor to ask all of you before I start. Apparently you got to haul your chair from all the way over there to here because of the stadium. So I would ask you, if you would, to take your chair after the event and bring it to those doors over there. Right over there in the corner. All right. We have been on the road. We've been on the road a lot. Here's what we're seeing. We're seeing a lot of support. We're seeing a whole bunch of support. I want you to understand this is a very simple thing. This is about money. This whole thing is about money. I want you to look at it this way. You earn the money, they take the money away from us, and they consistently try to make us poorer. And that's going to be what I'm going to try to explain to you tonight. There's a lot of people, there may be people in the room that are on the fence. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to look over the last 5 or 10 years and see what's happened. We'll pass by that. All right. It says the slim majority of Albertans would stay in Canada. We're very close, if not ahead of this curve. I really believe we have a legitimate chance to win this. As a matter of fact, I know it. I'm going to explain to you what's happening at our events. We have, like I alluded to, 250,000 people signed on our pledges. We were in Grand Prairie the other night. 75% of the people in the hall had not signed our pledge. That's happening everywhere. And I asked the question, how many of you people are going to support an independent Alberta? Everybody in the room. So these are places where we're seeing this. In Bonnyville, we had the Premier's dinner. We had 800 people in the room at $250 a seat. We asked the question, how many of you would support an independent Alberta, completely independent? Everybody. Not one dissenter in the whole room. We asked the question again. Anybody would like to stay in Canada? No, not one person. Although Bonnyville is a bit unique, because Bonnyville produces 35% of Alberta's oil, and as a consequence to that, every time the Trudeau government or these Liberal governments do anything, we feel it right away. Like we lose jobs, we lose industry, we lose all manner of stuff. That's me. There's only two parties basically in Alberta. I'm a UCP chair. I would never vote NDP. So as far as I'm concerned, there's only another choice. So here's what we do. We bring more people to the AGM so we can put freedom people in places of importance in the UCP government, because the government makes the decisions. In order to influence government, whichever government area that you have in your area, you should try and get on the CA board and participate so you can get the best candidate that represents your values in that. So whether that's partisan or not partisan, I don't think it's partisan, because I wouldn't care if I was living in an area with an NDP MLA, that I would try and get on their CA board and try and put somebody that thinks more like us in that kind of a position. So the annual AGM is coming up in Edmonton in November, I believe. So think about buying a membership and attending the AGM so that you can vote for however you feel is right on all the governance policies and resolutions that are going to be presented there. Jeff went over what makes us unique as Albertans. The bottom line is this: I'll take risk over regulation. My future isn't all it was to manage. And that's exactly how Albertans think. All right. I'm going to go back. I've had the opportunity. This is our last Premier's dinner. She actually made that quote before that, but I'm going to tie her to it because she said it. When I became Premier, I thought I would fix everything in 6 or 7 months, but everything is broken. What does that mean? Pierre Poilievre says, everything is broken. Donald Trump even said, everything is broken, but he's in another country, so we're not going to focus on that. Let's focus on here. What that means to me is that it's too corrupt to fix. It's too corrupt to fix. It means that the bureaucracy is entrenched and it can't be changed. It means that all of this stuff is too corrupt to fix. And the Premier said it to me on multiple occasions, but this time sticks out in my mind. And here's where it starts, with censorship. If you have censorship, you don't know what you don't know. I've always wondered, how these communist countries and Chinese people in communist China and all these areas can allow censorship. Well, they don't know. Right? They get their information all from one place. I'll back up here. They get their information all from one place, so there's absolutely no way that they can know what they don't know. So think about the little kids. And they're going to start little. And they're going to start to get information all from the same place, and pretty soon their mind is going to be thinking all in one direction. The critical thinking part is going to be gone. Never in my life would I've ever thought that we would have censorship in Canada and that the people would put up with that. It started with Trudeau giving the media $700 million. First thing Carney did when he got in, gave him another $150 million. Almost $1 billion in the last 5 or 6 years to media. And that comes with strings attached. And what's the strings? The strings is they push their message. And we're allowing it. We're not allowing it one at a time. As a nation, we're allowing it. But it also tells you the difference between possibly us and them. Us being Albertans and them being the rest of the country. Now, Dennis alluded to this, and I got to read it again because I can't believe this wasn't on the front page of every newspaper in Canada before the election. In his book, Values, Carney claims that Western society is morally rotten and it has been corrupted by capitalism, which has brought about a climate change emergency. This, he claims, requires rigid controls on personal freedom. Karl Marx could have written that, and nobody would have batted an eye. That is communism 101. No matter how you want to slice it, that's what that is. He said it, he wrote it, he means it. And he's going to prove, he's going to put that on top of our heads. Are we going to accept that? See, so here's the problem. If these people are that corrupt and they're stealing our money, and I'm going to show multiple examples of that, and they're mismanaging our money, and they're not being able to held accountable, do we live in a democracy? And the other thing is that our premier has said that she wants an independent Alberta within Canada, but however, if you leave the corrupt people up at the top, how can you ever fix it? Like, how can you fix it? So if the corruption stays in place, even though your heart wants to stay in Canada, how are you ever going to fix it? We haven't jailed a politician since 1923. And you and I would still, we go to jail. However, they're above the law. And if they're absolutely above the law and everything they do, they can't be touched, how can we possibly fix that system, even if they give us 4 pipelines? They give us 4 pipelines, but they're still going to control the money, and you're still going to be broke. Right? So the premier says, oh, we're going to give them 6 months to adjust and do their thing. And if they come back to us with some good offers, and my question to her is, how many of them 8 or 9 offers are they going to offer you? You're going to say this is okay. All 8 or 9? Or are they going to give you 2 or 3 and not going to make you happy? So you have to understand this. The big problem, again, is that if you can't put them in jail for stealing and every other nefarious thing they do, then you'll never fix the problem. That's why it's broken, and that's why it can't be fixed. There's the accord that I referred to. The premier says, you know, the federal government must provide to Alberta the same per capita federal transfers and equalization as is received by the other largest provinces, Quebec, Ontario, etc. What do you think the odds of that are? 0. This is what's at stake. The boys alluded to it. We've got the largest oil reserve in the world. We've got the largest natural gas reserves in the world. We've got forestry, we've got mining, we've got agriculture. We have everything here. This would be the richest piece of real estate in the world. We cannot be naive enough to think that these people don't want to take that from us. Because that is why wars are fought. Wars are fought to steal money from the neighbor. Because why? Because they haven't got any natural resources left. Who are we talking about here? Who are the principals? The principals, the Chinese, even Europe. What has Europe got compared to what we have here in Alberta? Just understand this. We're all in here. We're not going to get another chance to do this. This is going to be a one-shot deal. We either win this or we'll never talk about it again. There's an opportunity and a loophole to do this right now, and it won't ever happen again. So we're talking about keeping and preserving the richest piece of real estate in the world. And believe me, they're not going to let it go easily. There's absolutely no way in my mind that I think that this is going to be an easy fight. But don't let me say that it's not winnable, because I totally believe it's winnable. Here's their attitude towards Alberta. Screw the West, we'll take the rest. That sums it all up. That's the reason for the slide. If your teammates feel that way about you, do you want to be on that team? That's the major question that you have to ask yourself. All right, here we go. We're going to get into the money. Alberta's net contribution to Ottawa, more than $244 billion from 2007 to 2022. That's not the purpose of the graph. The purpose of the graph is to show you who's contributing and who's taking. Right? Do you see the difference between Alberta and everybody else? They picked on Alberta. They single Alberta out. The premier said they're abusing Alberta. I say they're looting Alberta. Here's the equalization. This is 25-26. $0 for BC, $0 for Alberta, $0 for Saskatchewan, $13.6 billion for Quebec. And here's the year before. How does that look? Very same thing. So just understand something. Quebec is not a have-not province. Quebec is at least as rich as Alberta and all the rest of those places. So how do they rate to literally get $27 billion in 13 months from us? And understand this, we're $100 billion in debt. How does that work? Again, they're singling out Alberta. Canada pension. Take a look at this. Alberta contributes more $53 billion more than everybody. All right, let's get the pension. You will keep your pension. They're going to threaten you with you're going to lose your pension. You're not going to lose your pension because your pension has a portability clause. You can move anywhere in the world and get paid your pension. So if you work for Canada, you contributed to Canada Pension, Holding Security, they owe you that money because if you lived in Costa Rica, you would get it. If you lived in Panama, you would get it. If you lived in America, you would get it. If you lived anywhere, you can also choose to keep your citizenship because Carney has 4 citizenships. He has 4 passports. So the government of Canada will not take your citizenship away from you. They understand that. You will not be punished that way. Albertans pay $9 billion a year to CPP. Albertans get paid $6 billion a year from CPP. Right? Understand that. We overcontribute by $3 billion a year. So even if that was all, we could afford to give you a 40% increase in your pension without adjusting anything else. Right? Just understand that. We only collect 6. We contribute 9. This goes on every year. But it gets better than that. The Canada Pension Plan Act says that if you overcontribute, and this is Ontario's contribution to this because they didn't want to overcontribute, if you overcontribute to CPP, that money goes into a pile for you. And that pile belongs to Alberta. Alberta's been overcontributing $3 billion a year or more for a long time, since the 60s. Our portion of that fund plus interest, like it says in the CPP Act, is $360 billion today or more. Bear in mind that 60 years of pension for every pensioner, for Albertans, based on not collecting another penny from anybody and no interest on that money. However, the federal government has taken upon themselves to put that $360 billion in their asset pile. That money is in their asset pile. It gives them the ability to borrow more money. It gives them leverage. It gives them the ability to do a lot of things, but that's not their money. That's Alberta's money. However, that's what's happening. So there, again, what are they doing to Alberta? They're singling Alberta out, taking a huge resource, a huge income tool for Alberta, and now they're trying to screw us out of the money. They're saying, well, now, I've read the formula. It's very clear. But now they say, well, we're going to have to do it on a per capita basis. You're going to have to get $94 billion out of that instead of the 360 that we actually owe you. And then somebody else said, well, you know, the lowest number we've ever heard, the lowest number that I've ever heard from any economist in anything is about the 180 to 195 billion dollar range. Let's just say, for argument's sake, that that's what they gave us. So you divide that by 6, and that's okay. We get 30 years worth of pension without having to add another penny in there. And that money's going to, CPP Act says they earn 10%. So if that money earns 10%, it's earning $19 billion a year, and we pay our seniors 6. Right? Even at half, it's still a good deal. So 2 years ago, our premier said this is an absolute no-brainer. So how come she hasn't brought it back to Alberta? I don't get it. Honest to God, I've been chasing this around Alberta for like a whole year. I've done 100 town halls on Alberta pension. Once people hear the numbers, they get it. It's a no-brainer. It is absolutely a solid no-brainer. But why isn't it, even at half of 350 billion, it's still a no-brainer. But here's my problem. Here's what I see here. I see that this should have been done 2 years ago, because now that we're at this point, that money's going to be really hard to get. Right? The federal government is not going to want to give Alberta this money. So by procrastinating and not actually moving on this is going to be a part of the negotiations if this referendum succeeds and we move forward, whereas it's 100% clear it should have been our money. Okay, so let's look at the last 10 years, just in case you forgot. Alberta government minister admits COVID restrictions are all about political control and power. Not about preventing transmission and distribution. Not about that. Transmission and infection, sorry, not distribution. Not about that. This was about power. So what did they do? They broke every freedom that we had. They locked us in our houses. They took away all of our freedoms, every single one of them. The problem with that is it's over now and we're fine with it. I'm not fine with it, but what I'm saying to you is they've showed you that they can do that. They know they can do that as well. And that, to me, is a major problem. If you want to know what's going to happen in the future, look backwards at history. Not only are they attacking our outrage, we're going to go into what's going on here. They're attacking our producers, they're attacking our farmers. Now, I come from an agricultural area, so I'll explain to you what's happening here. China hits Canada with retaliatory tariffs on canola oil and peas. So this retaliatory tariff was because we tariff Chinese electrical cars 100%, which nobody in Canada owns, and absolutely nobody knows what they're called. So this was consciously done so the Chinese would tariff our peas and our canola, which is absolutely half of our crop here in this part of the world. So the government consciously tariffed Chinese products so that they would tariff our producers. Accept that if you will, but that is exactly the result of what they did. Oil demand has gone up. We, however, are forced with production caps. This is the things that harm Alberta directly, nobody else. They block pipelines, tanker ban, in the west only, but they flow down the St. Lawrence very easily. Blocks oil and gas investment, carbon tax, all this matter of stuff. This hurts us directly. Doesn't hurt anybody else. Do you understand how much oil Alberta produces, like nationally? We produce 88% of national oil for Canada, 88%, and 97% of natural gas. So this doesn't affect anybody else but us. So they're obviously attacking Alberta, like they got a target on our back. They want to stifle our industry. Why? Do you ever imagine living in a country where you thought that your federal government would be attacking your biggest industry, attacking its own people? This is what we're looking at. Like it or not, this is where we are. You have to, it's like the doctor telling you you have cancer, and you walk out of the office and you say, well, no, I don't. I don't want to deal with that. We have cancer here. We have a problem. We have a rock. And like it or not, we have to deal with it. And I've got some bad news for you. Nobody's going to do it for us. We saw that in the last election. I was hoping Poilievre was going to win. I really was. I was thinking, you know how much less work that would have been for me? How much better that would have been for my business? I'm a sporting goods business, FYI. I sell guns, I've been selling guns for 47 years. I sell hockey equipment too, and ball equipment and all the rest of it, but we sell everything. So they would have put the gun laws back to Harper days, which were the best gun laws in the world. I'm not going to lie to you, we had the best gun laws in the world here in Canada. And now, since then, they're after that, but more on that in a bit. But the moral of the story is this. We pinned our hopes on the Conservatives, and they lost. I pinned my hopes on Pierre Poilievre, and he lost. And actually, you know what? I pinned my hopes on Danielle Smith and the UCP, and I really don't think they're moving that fast, as fast as I'd like them to move either. They're not saving us. So we have to get it in our minds that we are going to have to save ourselves, like it or not. So we have a path here. Path here is you've got to get more people, help us out, and take this as seriously as we take it, and work as hard as we do, and we can win this. And if we win this, I will guarantee you one thing. I can guarantee not very many things, but I'll guarantee you this. Once we see firsthand what they're taking from us, and once we understand how much that actually was, we'll be blown away. Jeff started alluding to the numbers. I saw the numbers. I have never used even half of those numbers that he was talking about, because the last thing I want to do is to come up here and tell you that you're going to have all this extra money and you don't have it. The exodus of investment, now just understand this. As a business person, I have more money if my customers have more money, right? My customers spend more money, we have more money. So these guys want to come into Alberta and invest money, and like them, they did not invest it here, they invested it somewhere else. So that money would have been producing and creating jobs for Albertans and our kids and forever, for another 20, 30, 40 years. Like everything that they built from that investment would be needing servicing, would be needing whatever, and would be producing it, we'd be getting royalties on it and all the rest of it. That money's gone. Why would they want to not invest that money in Alberta? Because Alberta's oil and gas is in a really good place for a lot of people. In the ground where it's accessible, and it's a free country, and it's easier to access. We're right next door to the biggest oil producer in the world, and they understand that. The Rockefeller Foundation is the dirty oil people, and they've been trying to keep oil in the ground for 10, 15, 20 years. There's not another country in the world that would have this kind of resource and not develop it. They think we're something wrong with us, like literally something wrong with us. Why are we not developing this industry? Because we have so much of everything else that we can kind of skim by it. But now what's happening is that we're going to come to a point where we're going to be as rich as we're ever going to get, and then it's going to go downhill. So they canceled this $11 billion plant in Kitimat. But what they want to do is they want to invest $50 billion in carbon capture. So what's the difference between this and carbon capture? So you can pay your own engineers and your own people to develop the carbon capture. So carbon capture is going to be, we put a big fan on the top of the building here, and they're going to suck up the CO2, make liquid CO2 out of it, which is extremely toxic, put it in a pipe, and then pipe it somewhere, put it in the ground, and how do you measure that? Whereas if they spent the money on this, that plant would have produced natural gas and revenue for 40 or 50 years. That other thing is a scam. It's no good. I've had meetings with Synovus. I've talked to these people. Now here's how much we've lost. Norway came to Alberta to study our oil patch, and I remember when they did it. I was in business. Since then, Norway has a $1.3 trillion oil fund, and Alberta has $100 billion in debt. What could we do with a $1.3 trillion oil fund? Jeff told you. We wouldn't have to pay any taxes. The same thing that Norway's doing. They pay, their education's all paid, they've got all manner of benefits. The interest on that alone, even at 5%, would pay the entire provincial budget every year, just the interest on that. And that's where we are. That's how much they take it from us. And that's not all of it. Because what's happened now is we don't have the advantage to have that money and move forward. So now we're making a decision right here today. So we're going to decide if we want that for our kids or not. If we continue down the path we're going to still end up with the $0 fund. Or if we make a decision to go the other way, we're going to end up with the $1.3 trillion fund, and there's no doubt in my mind about that. So not only are they, I alluded to the fact they're going to put a production cap, they're talking about a production cap that's going to limit our production to half. What's that going to do? We're going to go from 4.5 billion barrels a day, 4.5 million barrels a day to half, to 2.2, 2.3. That's going to cause a major recession in Alberta. They're not going to need to expand. Our welders will be out of work. The production is going to be cut in half, so the transport people, all the rest of that's going to be out of work. This is going to cripple us. The Premier has alluded to this. This is a crippling deal, this carbon cap. It's going to hurt us immeasurably. And here's the idiocy of the whole thing. The carbon tax has cost Canadians billions of dollars over 5 years, hurting the economy while reducing CO2 emissions by 11.9 gigatons. China emits 11.9 gigatons every day and a half. Every day and a half. So, where does China get their coal? From Canada, from Alberta. Which port ships more coal than any port in North America? Vancouver. We could have shipped natural gas, which is way cleaner burning than that, would have reduced emissions tremendously. But no, it's not in the plan. So what happens when you make coal a dirty burning fuel? The price goes down, right? So they're burning out 7 train loads of Alberta fuel, go into Vancouver, Alberta coal, go to port in Vancouver every day. at a much reduced price. Taxing people into poverty is not going to change the weather. All right. Now here's the rest of this. This is one of my favorite slides. Actually, it's probably my favorite. Here's the taxes we pay right now. Carbon tax, personal income tax, corporate income tax, goods and services tax, excise taxes, fuel excise tax, alcohol excise duty, tobacco excise duty, cannabis excise duty other than alcohol, tobacco, and cannabis, custom duties, air travel security charge, luxury tax, provincial territorial tax, capital gains tax, land transfer tax, media tax, regulation tax, CPP tax, business tax, estate tax, and they're going to tax your house. Do you think that's overreach? Just asking. You think that's fair? So they're killing our industry, shutting us down, taxing the hell out of us, and then taking it, transferring it to people all over the world. And then the audit of $187 billion worth of liberal infrastructure spending finds 20,000 missing projects. So what does that mean? They're finding another place for it. This is the stuff that we see. Now just understand this. I'm in a retail business. People steal from me. A lot. They run out the door with stuff. They're, all manner of stuff. I've had $5,000 rifle scopes stolen from inside my store. Guys run outside. We actually get them on camera. We find them, and actually this turned out to be Lloydminster. The guy went to court, didn't have to give me my $5,000 back or my scope. Literally. So the amount of money that it's cost me in 47 years in shoplifting has been actually tremendous. But here's what I'm saying to you. This is what I'm talking to you about. If you cannot convict these people, what's going to stop them from continuing to do it? If they keep coming in the store and they keep grabbing $5,000 rifle scopes with no consequence, are they going to come back? 100%. 100%. This is not fixable until we can hold them accountable. And they will never do it. And then not only that, they don't want to go to work and admit it. This is the pro-parliament because they were looking for $400 million at Green Slush Fund, remember that? And then the other thing they were doing is that they were looking for election interference from the Chinese and those people, but they had to pro-parliament because they didn't want to answer the questions, even though the Liberal speaker said that they needed to answer these questions. So then what did we do? We allowed them to pro-parliament, and then we elected a government, same government that we lost, and then they put their Jack cabinet back into place. And how much change do you think we're going to get because of that? None. We're starting brand new, just the way it was when they left. Except the leader is way smarter than his cousin. Right? We're talking World Economic Forum leadership here is the Prime Minister of our country. Like that fact, don't like that fact, just go back, look, he's on the board of directors of the World Economic Forum. What's their goal? Globalism. What's our answer? Localism. That's the only chance we have. And it gets worse. As bad as this is, it gets worse. All political power comes from the barrel of a gun. The Communist Party must command all the guns. That way no guns can ever be used to command the party. That's from Mao. They killed 100 million people after they seized the guns. They're still killing people today. The people have no way to defend themselves. They have no guns. The average gun owner in Canada with a license is 4 times less likely to murder somebody than the average Canadian citizen. That's a legit stat. So just understand this. They're not taking our guns away from us for our own good. It's for their own good. Now contrast that to what a democracy looks like. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. That is to protect yourself from government. That's what that was put there for. Now, I know that sounds far-fetched. We live in Canada. Like, we don't expect our government to hurt us, but we're seeing that our government is consciously hurting us and has been doing it for quite some time without consequence. Can you read that? I don't generally read that one. You're up to you're on your own there. All right. The last part of this is the social stuff part of it. We'll go into the fentanyl and all the drugs and street drugs and all the opioid stuff that's happening in our country, stuff that's never happened before. The last 4 or 5 years, we've got 10 cities in Edmonton. We've got 10 cities all over the place. If you've ever been to Portland, Oregon, you will never forget it. Like, it's insane. Like, it's nuts. Like, it's like all these people, I don't know where they come from, but they're living on the street, and it doesn't matter what. This is their focus, is getting things. We lose 22 people a day in this country. The Americans lost 135,000 people every year for the last 3 or 4 years, which is actually more than they lost in the last 75 years in their wars, including Vietnam and Korea and Vietnam. This is a big, big problem. And the reason I bring it up is because Canada is allowing material to make this stuff come into Canada, and it's being made here and shipped around the world. We have 4,000 organized crime families in Canada. Foreign interference is one of the biggest problems we have in this country, according to CSIS. That's our FBI. And here's the rest of the problem. Trudeau's allowing 2 million immigrants into Canada every year. There's nothing wrong with immigration, ladies and gentlemen. My grandparents were immigrants. Uncontrolled immigration is the problem. And guess what they just did? They just laid off 3,200 people that were controlling immigration into Canada. They just laid off 3,200 people, and they weren't keeping up already. Like, this lady called Jeff, and then she called me within the last 4 or 5 days and said, look, it takes less than 10 minutes to process people coming into the country now. Before, it used to be almost impossible. It used to take a long time. You would vet people. People that were sponsoring you were responsible for you. They had to make sure that what was happening was you were being taken care of and you're not going to be a burden on society. What's happening here now is if they come into Canada and their work visa expires, they get to apply for refugee status. They get $700 a child and up to $65,000 a year as refugees. And yet, our old people are struggling for money. But these people are coming. And how many expiring work visas do you think are going to expire in 2025? 5 million. And they don't know where these people are. And they don't want to know. Right? And so, and you think that's bad, in the first 4 months of this year, they've allowed 800,000 more into the country. So that's going to increase from 2 million to 2.4 million a year. How long do you think we can sustain that? It's not sustainable now. And that would be like replacing Edmonton every year. You would replace Edmonton, but you could put these people in the country because we have lots of room, but the infrastructure won't support it. That's what's wrong with our healthcare system. That's what's wrong with our education system. That's what's wrong with everything. It's just bursting at the seams because the people that are working can't afford to pay for all that. All right, finally, this is what we're doing. No matter what anybody says to you, we're giving the government leverage. We're going to give Alberta a chance just by the number of people that we have. If we didn't have 250,000 people in our group, there'd be no chance that there'd be any change at all. We were onboarding 5,000 people an hour after Carney elected. 5,000 people an hour were joining Alberta Prosperity Project. I really believe, and I know this with all my heart, that not only did we get 5,000 people an hour, there was 10,000 people an hour more that are fed up. They're tired of this nonsense. I saw a great big billboard on the way here that I drive Highway 2 very often. I saw it today that basically said, we're tired of this. We're not putting up with this corruption anymore. And that had nothing to do with us. And we're seeing it everywhere. Every freedom group in the province is working with us. Everyone. Every single one. And we know these people. So this is what I want from you. We have 250,000 people. If everybody gave us $20, we'd get this thing over the top. So please donate to us. If you haven't got cash tonight, go to the APP website, donate to us. We got to reach the young people, the people that are not coming to this event, and we have to do it on social media. And that is exactly how we're going to do it. We're going to pay to get it done. Because once they understand the numbers, there is nothing that the federal government can offer us when we cut all those taxes out. You will get a 27 to 35% increase in your pay instantly, and kids understand that because right now they're living in an area where they think it's hopeless. They don't think that they're going to be able to move forward. That is not the way I grew up. When I was 18, 19 years old, I thought I was going to go out there and work hard. I started my business as a 20-year-old, literally. And I didn't even think it was a great deal. Like, all my friends were doing the same damn thing. And not only that, they were buying houses at 20, 21, 22 years old. That's not doable anymore. The Canadian dream is lost. We want it back. We can get it back. We just have to do the work. All right. So this is what we're going to need you to do. We're going to need you to go to the website, give us your pledge. We got to get in touch with you. You have to be the disciples of this movement if you believe in it. This is still going to be a democracy. We still have to win the vote. So you have to talk to people. You have to talk to your friends. You have to get in there. You have to be put on our website so that we can reach you when it comes time to knock on doors, because we have to get signatures that are notarized. We have to get them signed, and then we have to get a notary public to notarize them. So that's going to be a lot of work. And then after that, we have to win the referendum. So it's going to take a lot of us. It's going to take a lot of work. And I think we can do it. And thank you very much.
Let's give another round of applause for Mitch Sylvester. I wanted to thank our sponsors one more time. I wanted to say thank you to Kahoot Capital, the Dome, and as well Daunton's Oil Services. Thank you very much for having us here this evening. We're going to move into a question and answer period right now. So I'll invite Mitch, Dennis, and Jeff to come back up on stage. I'm going to stand over here with a microphone, and you guys can come over and ask your question. Keep the questions brief so that if there's a lot of people asking the questions, we can get through everybody. I will hold on to the mic, and if you're rambling, I will shut it off, just so you know. So I'll invite the guys back up on stage.
Come on, Dennis. You got to answer all those damn questions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi, everybody. I want you to look at me as the corruption, the mirror of the corruption in Canada. I was truck driver. I left Quebec because Quebec wanted to separate from Canada from 2014.
Do you have a question?
So, please, leave Canada now. Don't wait for nothing. If this is the truth, leave, just leave. We suffer. Look at me, please. To get treatment, I need to go to Montreal to get treatment. WCB took me out from surgery table. They avoid me to surgery. I get CRPS. If women here know what is delivery, baby, my pain is more than this. Every little bit of wind, I'm fainting. They don't give me medication. Like, this is Alberta. My boss is a Nazi. You fucking Jewish. You dirty Jewish. I want to show you a video. You think you're 19 back and when the Jewish stuff from the Germany. Canada becomes Germany.
We understand. Thank you for your comments, sir.
I'm Jewish,
Okay, there's other people that have questions. We're sorry. We'll talk to you later. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
I'll be very brief. Thanks for all you guys for coming here to Red Deer. It was amazing to see you guys. My question is about communication and strategy. You just mentioned about social media and the younger generation. What do you think that is kind of preventing people from getting the message to the younger generation, specifically those who are in the academia and universities in general?
Well, I think, first of all, I think every parent in the room has to talk to their own kids. I think that's a good place to start. Because I mean, I know that I'm constantly drilling mine, just saying. But the other thing is that we have to be aware that the money part of this conversation is going to resonate with everybody. The freedoms that we're going to gain back and going to keep should resonate with everybody, because it doesn't matter which side of the aisle you're on. Everybody in Alberta thinks they live in a democracy. They're probably going to see that they're not at some point if this continues going down this path. But I think that we have to sell it like, you're going to save your democracy and you're going to be much better off because of it.
We have two questions. The first one is regarding the First Nations you were talking about earlier. Can they vote to leave in the referendum?
Of course.
Without the interference from the National Indian Council or whatever the...
No, of course. Every First Nations person in Alberta is an independent citizen. Everybody's entitled to vote. And there's even, under the new legislation, there's even voting procedures for voting on reserve. So absolutely, First Nations people will be voting in the referendum, and we welcome it.
Cindy, she's pushed back and she said Alberta can leave with the dirt thing. Nothing, basically. Well, so I don't know how much of a fight that's going to be with the First Nations, but it's a little concerning.
I honestly don't think it's going to be much of one. I had lunch with the chief and council today, and I was walking them through our program, and they were delighted with it. And they were saying this needs to get out to every community in Alberta, every First Nations community in Alberta. And when they understand that there's going to be actual constitutionalized resource revenue sharing, that the revenue of every community, Indigenous community in Alberta is going to triple on a constitutionalized basis going forward, and set up community endowment funds for health, education, housing, economic development, that are actually their money in separate funds for each community, so they don't need to go to Ottawa and bend the knee anymore with a begging bowl like we've all been forced to do. You'll be seeing a slow but steady movement of First Nations governments in favor of what we're doing as they understand it more. The question I always ask the chiefs is, look, I don't understand. Like, why do you want to keep sending $15 billion a year to Quebec when that money can stay in Alberta and benefit your communities, not communities in Quebec? So it's going to be a slow process, but we have a year to get there. And from the meeting I had today with the chief and council, I don't think it's going to be a very hard sell. So we're just going to keep moving forward.
The second question I had is regarding APP's, I guess, offensive action against somebody posing a referendum question that would beat you to the ballot, basically.
We're not worried about that. It's just mischief. It's I actually turned to a friend of mine, and I was talking to him the other day, and I was like, God, who thought the referendum process was going to turn into a Polish show? Right? Which is kind of what we're dealing with when we're dealing with Tom Lucchese, right? For his question to succeed, he has to get 600,000 signatures. He filed it under the old statute. He doesn't have the organization to do it. He doesn't have the capacity to do it. He's just making mischief on behalf of the old line PCs. That's all he's doing. And Kenny's probably there, and Jason Kenney is probably there egging him on, because we all know that Kenny's a good federalist that wants to make sure that Alberta money keeps going to Quebec. So anyway, we're dealing with it. It won't be a problem.
I recently saw online that chiefs from Alberta nations were saying that it would be difficult for Alberta to separate. So given that there's treaty rights in place, some of which are with the federal government, from a legal perspective, what does that mean in terms of barriers to separate? And are there other ways to get around it?
Well, we don't have to get around it. There's a process under the Clarity Act that requires negotiations with First Nations to begin with. And the plan that APP is proposing, and that we will start laying out the framework, the fiscal framework for it, and the business plan that we're developing, is such that what it does is it invites the Indigenous nations of Alberta to the table to negotiate a new constitutional deal with the Commonwealth of Alberta that's going to leave them far better off than the 150 years of poverty and degradation that the government of Canada has placed them in. So thank you for the question.
Hello. I'm interested in finding out if you'd be starting a financial institution where we could deposit our money so that when the federal government closes our bank accounts, we can faithfully be protected.
Well, that's a really good question, actually. I have to give a shout out right now to the Bow Valley Credit Union. You talk about an organization, a banking institution here in Alberta that never closed the accounts during the trucker convoy if somebody donated. So with respect to new financial institutions, when we're a sovereign nation, there would be other financial institutions that would come into Alberta as well, in addition to the major banks that are here now. It's just that they would have a different level of competition that would be, because as you know, competition improves the product, the outcome. So, it'll be beneficial for all Albertans to have more financial institutions offering better services and better prices for things. So I think it's going to be a wonderful situation. And it's not just banking. I mean, all kinds of business will move here. Why? Because we can be the lowest taxed, or amongst the lowest taxed regions in the world, the least regulated and least governed. So it's beneficial to business. If it's beneficial to business, it will be beneficial to everybody. So I don't know if that sufficiently answers your question, but that was my best shot.
A bank.
To create a bank.
Where it's not a part of Canada.
Yeah, well, right now that. Yeah, so you're talking about creating a new bank that's just in Alberta. Well, like I said, Bow Valley Credit Union is just in Alberta. And other credit unions are just in Alberta as well. But if we wanted a new national bank for Alberta, that's very possible to create a new national bank for Alberta. It could be a morphing of ATB to become the Alberta National Bank, or it could be a de novo, a new national bank. That would be very possible. It's just a matter of making it happen.
No, we hear you on that. I mean, we're not here to, to get into that kind of detail. I have my own views of Alberta Treasury Branch. I mean, I've heard from business owners in the province that they were one of the worst banks to deal with in a post-COVID world. But, all of those questions are going to be, available to be answered as we, as all Albertans come together and we define our new constitution on a going forward basis. But I don't understand why in a free and largely unregulated Alberta that lots of banks from the States or new banks couldn't be formed in Alberta. There'd be no reason not to. Yeah.
Sorry, I guess my was the same around the banking system. You hear lots these days, you don't know what to believe. So when it comes to the banking system, is there going to be some sort of a transition period? Are we going to have problems, or how's that going to work?
Well, what we're doing is we're putting into place transitional plans on a going forward basis. I mean, all of those things are things to be considered. And people are going to want to decide, I think, long before the referendum whether they want to continue to bank with Canadian banks. And as Dennis has said, I mean, some of the Alberta credit unions rather than ATB are probably the safest and best place to go.
I did switch to Bow Valley Credit.
There we go.
I think a lot of us did.
The Clarity Act says that there must be a clear majority on a clear question, but it doesn't identify what is a clear majority. It also says that those folks in the House of Commons are the ones that get to decide if it was a clear question or a clear majority. So I'm just wondering, what's your sense of, will we actually be able to negotiate a separation, or will we have to follow our neighbors from the south and just make a declaration of independence?
Well, I'll start off and then Jeff can deal with this as well. But yes, you're correct that the House of Commons has to approve the question. I can assure you that the question that was drafted by Jeff and Keith Wilson is crystal clear. It follows the letter of the Clarity Act. In fact, some of the wording is virtually identical. So, but the issue of negotiations becomes another matter. And what's unclear in the Clarity Act is what happens if negotiations fail. And I think that's a really important question. And because there's no clear answer, you can then go back and look at what is in the analysis by the Supreme Court, which led to the Clarity Act. And that analysis, and Jeff educated me on this as well, is sections 154 and 155 that I think are it's the brilliant solution. It's political legitimacy to have a referendum that's successful. That should be 50% plus one. And then when the international community acknowledges it, Alberta has the right, just like Kosovo did, to declare its independence unilaterally. That would be the easiest, fastest way. Then the negotiations are just on the terms, and there's no muddying of the water of negotiations about, well, maybe if we get a better deal in Canada, we'll stay. None of that would be the topic of negotiation. It's, we'll do this, that's your domain, and we're out. That would be the kind of thing. Jeff, you want to add to that at all? No? No? All right. But I've got to tell you something else, because you brought up the Clarity Act. And Jeff, I think Jeff wouldn't say this. I'm not a lawyer, but I'm going to say it. And that is that whoever drafted the Clarity Act from a legal point of view finished at the bottom of the class. Okay? And I'll tell you why. Because it's internally conflicted. The fourth paragraph of the preamble of the Clarity Act states that the successful referendum forces negotiations, but the last line says negotiations might lead to secession. Well, might lead to secession also means it might not lead to secession, right? But then you look at Section 4A of the Clarity Act, and it's very clear. You can't have a referendum if the purpose is to negotiate a better deal in Canada. So it's internally conflicted. It's the stupidest thing I've ever seen. Jeff, I don't know. Do you agree with that?
And I think at the end of the day, I mean, you look at paragraphs 154 and 155, and, you know, clearly Albertans are an oppressed people. We just look at the Senate balance, we look at the Supreme Court balance, you look at the way we've been treated throughout Confederation. You know, we could unilaterally secede under paragraph 154. Or alternatively, we could simply unilaterally declare independence under section 155, and we have it on pretty good authority that if we issued that Declaration of Independence, the Americans would recognize us the next day. So, and I'd far rather negotiate with Canada nation to nation than as a province on bended knee saying, "Oh, please, great Canada, can we please have our money back?" like we've been doing for the last 50 years. I'm just tired of it.
Question. You've told us to give some money, signed up here on your list, and tell a few friends, but I'm kind of feeling like I wish there was more I could do. What more can we do?
We have lots of APP volunteers and coordinators around here. Just talk to one of them and find out how you can volunteer. And then, you know, if you want to reach out to one of us, please do. I mean, you know, we're always happy to talk to our friends and our fellow Albertans. And obviously, we'll find a place for you where your skills can be put to the best use.
So what I'd like you to do is go back to the tables in the back, sign up as a volunteer, put what you want to do on there, whether it's just what skill set you have, because here's the path. The path is we have to get all these people signed. We have to get all these people on board. We have to door knock. We're going to have a lot of work to do, and we have to do it CA by CA. So the province is split up into 87 constituency associations. We need leaders in every single one. We have to get a percentage of people in every single one to win this. So it's very important that we break up. The people in this room can lead in your area and go join your group in the back, and they will tell you, believe me, I'm going to share something with you. If you want to work hard enough, they'll make you leader. I promise you. I promise you that. I know that from experience.
And at the same token, I'll be really quick. I mean, we've had some wonderful people come forward. I got a phone call from a gentleman. It's like, Jeff, I really want to volunteer. What can I do to help? I really want to help get Alberta out of Canada. So we're starting to have a conversation. And I said, wow, it sounds like you've had a hell of a career and a hell of an education. And I said, I don't know whether, just door knocking is what you want to do. I said, what, the multinational corporation you were working with, what was your primary job? He says, well, I was in charge of all of their internal information systems and computers. And then on top of that, I really like doing business plans. So I was doing all of their business plans for $400 million and more, and doing all of their multi-billion-dollar business plans for large projects. He said, I really enjoy doing those. And I said, oh, what a coincidence. It's on my to-do list to get a business plan for an independent Alberta done. Would you like to help out? Oh, I live for that kind of work. Put me to work, right? And 2 weeks later, we have a wonderful business plan for an independent Alberta. So we love our volunteers for sure.
Jumbo, habari yako? Dennis, that's Swahili. So it just means hello, how are you? Just one question. After we win the referendum, what are the chances the federal government could enact the Emergencies Act, and how do we prepare for it?
Yeah, we're not entertaining those questions. This is a peaceful and democratic movement, and we're not planning, war or insurrection. We're going to move forward peacefully on the assumption that that the communists in Ottawa are going to behave themselves. So let's just move forward on that basis.
Hey, thanks for coming out tonight, guys. One quick question. We need a strong, cohesive voice in this. Now, my only concern is we now have the Republican Party of Alberta. Is there going to be a couple of splinter groups that are going to say we're for independence, and then the message is going to get divided and splintered up when it needs to be one cohesive plan for Alberta?
Well, let's be clear. I mean, there's a number of independence parties running around right now. The Republicans are one of them. That's why APP says we're nonpartisan. Like right now, we're not fighting over who's going to be the boss of us. Like all we want is to get Alberta out of Canada. And all of those groups can work along with us towards that goal and understand that APP is leading the charge on getting the signatures, getting the petitions filled out, and driving forward to a referendum. And beyond that, I have no interest whatsoever in divisive, inter-party squabbling or who gets to be Yertle the turtle at the end of the day. I have zero interest in that.
So I do have a comment about who's leading this. You guys are leading this. This is the citizens of Alberta that are going to lead us to sovereignty. And it's a grassroots movement. It's a populist movement. And, we're facilitating it, but you guys are leading it.
So remember my comment before about we can't depend on a leader? I want you guys to not depend on a leader. That's a conscious thing we're doing here. We totally understand. I'm the CEO of APP. I could jump up and say, hey, I'm leading this, but that's not what we want. We want you to understand that from now on, you're going to have to participate in your democracy. You're going to have to be the face of it. You're going to have to keep your eye on your MLAs. You're going to have to keep your eye on the money. You're going to have to do all of that. And unless you do, moving forward, this is going to be right back to where we started. So we're consciously doing this on purpose to make sure that the people are put as the face of this movement. That is our absolute goal, to make sure that people understand it. And we've been on that for months. We're consciously doing it.
Just one more thing. As long as we can have a clear plan, right? Because that's what people are. They're on the fence. They want a clear path and a clear plan, and that's what has to be done. That's the only thing that concerns me.
No, and it's all being rolled out as we go. The business plan is going to be rolled out next week, and then 2 weeks after that, we'll be rolling out the draft interim constitution. So we're working on it. Good.
So I came in a little bit late, and you guys did touch on the CPP. I just wanted to make sure that, well, we all have friends and family who are disabled and may not be able to work. Are they going to be covered and taken care of as well?
Well, yeah, nothing's going to change there.
Okay.
Most of the money that's doing that's already coming from here. Yeah, so we're going to take care of all our people. We're not leaving anybody behind.
Yeah, and when people see the newly costed business plan and they see what the surplus fiscal capacity of this province is, everybody in this province, whether you're disabled, whether you're collecting a pension, whether you're engaged with Alberta Health, whatever it is, every social service that we have in this province is going to be nothing but enhanced by the fact that we're going to have an extra $50 billion a year in revenue coming into Alberta that isn't going into Quebec, Ontario, Trudeau's electric choo-choo trains between Montreal and Toronto and, all of that foolishness. So all of our money is going to stay here and we'll have lots of it.
Yeah, I got two. Is there any trick that Carney, I know you guys got your ducks in a row. Is there any trick Carney can pull to totally shoot this down?
He's already doing it every day. Every time. It's like, how can you tell Mark Carney's lying? His lips are moving, right? Like, I will give you a pipeline, but only one pipeline, and only provided that you can find, a national consensus for pipelines, including all of the indigenous people in the country. And once everybody is unanimous on it, you can have a pipeline. Everything that he's doing right now is a trick.
That's what got me, it is getting me scared, is that Carney will do something to kibosh this.
No, but again, that's where we all need to have a sense of urgency about what we're doing and work forward as hard and as fast as we can to get this done. Because quite frankly, if we don't get it done in the next 12 months, it might not ever happen. So everybody needs to approach this with a sense of urgency.
And if we do separate, and if we hope it happens, are we going to be like a territory like Guam, or are we going to try and run to the States?
No, where we're at right now, and I think all the polling supports it, even though there are a lot of people that are, in favor of just joining the United States, it's a staged process. First of all, we have to get the hell out of Canada. That's step one, right? And then I always say, like, okay, we just got out of a bad relationship. Why would we jump into a rebound country? Right? So, get our affairs in order here. Let's look at how well we're going to be living with half of our taxes gone, all of the federal regulation gone, see how wonderful life is here, and then start wondering why we want to, have somebody else's regulatory regime imposed on us from outside, right? But that being said, and I'll just quickly run through them. There's, like different statuses. You could be a freely associated state like Micronesia. You could be a territory like Guam, U.S. Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, or full statehood, right? We're not pursuing any of those options at this time. We're pursuing full independence with Alberta, and the discussions we're having with the United States are in terms of creating a U.S.-Alberta common market with no border, fully integrated economy, likely the same currency, just for ease of trade, and so on. No tariffs on either side of the border, free flow of goods and services, but we would remain independent. We wouldn't be a U.S. state. We wouldn't be a territory. So, yeah.
So our last three questions, and then we like to mingle, so we'll do that afterwards.
Gee, I forgot my question. Part-timers kicking in. Love you guys. Fantastic. You did a wonderful job. Yay. This would be an odd question. Alberta's so big. How many Englands could you fit inside of Alberta?
I've never even thought about that. It's I do know in terms of size, we're 255,000 square miles. So we're like 10,000 square miles smaller than Texas. We're almost double the size of California. And I think we're 100,000 square miles smaller than Alaska. So I think we got lots of room here and we're going to do fine.
Like that. So
probably.
We can all separate. Thank
I just want to thank you. I really enjoyed each of your conversations and I'm really encouraged to begin with. Quick question. I'm not clear on whether you're for UNDRIP or against UNDRIP.
UNDRIP, we fought in Bonnyville. We fought UNDRIP and basically stopped it in Alberta. So just understand something about UNDRIP. The Crown land in Alberta belongs to the government of Alberta. Okay? Uncontested. So if they're United Nations is going to try to make national parks out of this area so they could control it and be controlled federally. But just before UNDRIP became a deal, they signed a brand new treaty with all the people involved here in Alberta. As a matter of fact, Dave Hansen, my MLA, was chair of that committee, and he actually did a wonderful job defending that when UNDRIP tried to come to our area, to northeastern Alberta, and basically put their territories right on top of all the big oil development places. And our premier said, absolutely no way, this is not happening. And that's where it was left. So I haven't heard too much from UNDRIP before. BC, however, is having problems with that. All over BC, like around Prince George, basically by Vancouver Island and all the rest of that kind of stuff. Even in northern BC, they're trying to put a big park so you can't put tankers through there, basically making it national park. But not going to be a deal in Alberta from what I can see. The treaty's been signed. All the interest groups have participated, the Métis, the Aboriginals, the choppers, the landowners, the Caribou are going to be fine, and all the rest of that's all good.
I'm not sure if this is a good question, or I don't know if you can explain it. I'm not understanding it right now. So I don't trust any of our top 5 political parties whatsoever. They're all compromised, including UCP. So what happens when we separate? Are we still kind of UCP? That's my question.
Well, I think the reason a lot of us are involved in this project isn't just to get Alberta out of Canada, but it's to reimagine the constitution of the independent Commonwealth of Alberta. I mean, what we're positing is, you know, real checks and balances. So we'd have an elected legislature on the basis of population. We'd have a Senate comprised of regions so that the cities can override, you know, and pass stupid laws and force them down the throats of us rural people. Each of the treaty areas would have 2 senators along with the other regions so that we'd have good regional representation across the Senate. And then we'd have an elected executive with a line item veto power. So if people wanted to pass idiotic spending bills loaded with pork like they do in the States, the chief executive could just knock back items one by one to make sure that the budget balance, which will also be a constitutional requirement. So.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, my wife and I were watching a video and you guys were on YouTube and you were Danielle Smith. Are you working with her?
I don't think I was ever on a video with Danielle Smith. She doesn't ever want to be in the same room with me.
So that would be me. Okay, go ahead. So what was your question?
Well, are we working with the UCP? Is she backing us or trying to help us out here? Or?
I would love to work with the UCP. How's that for an answer?
Okay.
I would love to work with the UCP. Danielle has said, Premier Smith has said, that she wants a united Alberta within Canada. That's kind of, I was there about 8 weeks ago. I no longer am there. I've kind of, well, I've evolved past that because my main point in my presentation was if we can't try the criminals that are ruling our country, how can we possibly have any different situation we have now? And that's basically what our problem is. And so just to expand on that, I was a member and one of the leaders of the Black Hats, and we brought a new Alberta Bill of Rights to the floor of the AGM last year, and it passed with a supermajority. So we're going to have this wonderful brand new Bill of Rights, and we're never going to have to worry about all the stuff that happened in COVID ever again. And the UCP took that bill and murdered it, threw us under the bus, and we ended up with less rights than we had before. And my question to them was, why? Why would you do that to us? And their response was, we'll weather it. So why would they do that to us? Just saying to you, and here's the way I looked at this. I looked at this Bill of Rights as being an opportunity for every Albertan to participate in a more robust Bill of Rights than what we had before. And then they put all these notwithstanding clauses in it, Section 1 in it, and the killer to me, or one of the big killers to me, is that they promised us the right to bear arms. And then after it got passed, they put the right to bear arms according to the law. And the law would be the federal law. So not only did we lose the right to bear arms because under 9213 of the Constitution, the federal Constitution, we would have control of the province, over property and civil rights. But by putting that in accordance to the law on there, they absolutely changed that and give federal government the authority to have dominion over our guns. So I'm just saying that that's something that they did to us. And we proposed an Alberta gun license just a couple of weeks ago to change that, but they haven't adopted that yet. So yeah, I would love to work with the UCP on anything. So here, let's go back. The Premier said, Alberta pension plan is a no-brainer. So what do? We go flat after Alberta pension plan. So what happens 2 years later? They say, oh no, we're no longer chasing that down anymore. Okay, so they change that. Alberta Bill of Rights, same thing. We're going to chase that down. And because the UCP introduced it again, I'm a UCP chair. I would say this is the benefit to all of Alberta. And it's going to be a benefit to Alberta if we ever want to get out of Canada. Like the Alberta pension plan, for example, one of the first things. Because that's the number one asked question about secession. Or independence. And then the third thing, and here we are, who said first that if you don't do this, it's going to affect national unity? Our Premier. And what does that mean to you? That means this, right? You can't affect national unity if you haven't got a group and you're not going to actually have a stick. This is the stick. But now, what do we got? I'm wearing red right down to my toes, and we're going to stay in Canada no matter what. And that's the reason Alberta independence failed when they did it before. They walked in the room and said, an independent Alberta is off the table. And now we end up where we are now. So, does that answer? Okay, cool. All right, good. Awesome. Wrap up. Cool.
Just want to thank you all for coming, and we'll mingle over by the merchandise and the tables back there. So thanks again to all our sponsors and to all of you. Have a wonderful evening. And we had over 2,000 people watching on the internet this evening as well.
Perfect.
1 second here. Sorry, folks. What a show. Sorry, guys. The camera's all over the place. Thank you to everybody who super chatted tonight, everybody who came up for the stream. Watch out tomorrow for my interview with APP. It's going to be legendary. Can't wait to see you guys there. Have a great night. Thank you again to everybody who thanked us, super chatted. Hopefully Mrs. Fringe got it. Hopefully got some good information. We'll catch you on the next one, guys. Take care.